All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you would come in, take a seat. We're going to come to order and get started. All right, before we get started, I want to ask Chairman Watson, if he would, to lead us in a word of prayer. What's your number? All right, go ahead.
Of the state, and just help us to make the right decisions, and just be with us as we finish the week out, and give everyone safe travels. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, we're going to start with a presentation today. I want to just let the committee know that I will be sliding out at some point. I have to go and present a bill in another committee, so I'm going to ask our Vice Chairman Carsons, to take over when I leave, and he'll be here for the remainder of the meeting. So we have one bill on today, and I know that we're going to have some folks that are here to speak on that bill, and I will ask Chelsea if she would provide a sign-up list. So if you're going to be here to speak on Senate Bill 200, she will have a list out front on the table. Just come up and sign up and put your name and who you're representing. So at this time, we want to call up Alan Simon, Winamotrax. He's the Vice President of Development Affairs. I know they have a strong presence here in our state, and they're going to tell us more about their company. So, Mr. Simon.
Good afternoon. We'll go through a quick presentation on Omnitrax. We are a transportation company based in Denver, Colorado. We've got 3 railroads here in the state of Georgia. Have had a presence here for 28 years. Not only do we have railroads, but we are involved in all elements of transportation, transloading, logistics, and supply chain. We interchange with all of the Class 1 railroads here in the state. We interchange with Norfolk Southern and CSX. And again, 20 short line railroads throughout the country. We're proud of our record of growth over the last 5 years, 20% year after year EBITDA growth, making us certainly the fastest growing railroad company, but growing faster than some companies like Apple, Google, Berkshire Hathaway. We're a big believer in investing in the communities where we operate. We average about $40 to $60 million a year investing into capital, acquisitions, and so forth. And we have plans to continue that rate of investment in the state of Georgia. We enjoy doing 3P, public-private partnerships. Done a number of those throughout the country. We have an existing 3P with Effingham County Development Authority regarding an industrial park we have near Savannah. Just a few little facts about rail. Every day in this country, railroads move 5 million tons of freight. Rail is 4 times more efficient than trucks. Rail is a great way to get trucks off the highway. You can move a ton of freight 471 miles on 1 gallon of diesel fuel. And we have a great safety record, 20 times better than trucking. Our parent company is the Bro Group, founded in 1972, over 1,000 employees, about $5 billion in asset value. We're involved in real estate, rail, oil and gas, infrastructure, and health technology. We have over 400 customers that we serve on our railroads, and many of the Fortune 50 customers. We're proud of that. Some recent success, we have a railroad here called the Georgia-Florida line. Recently partnered with a big customer to create 150 new jobs, a brand new 300,000 square foot facility serving Albany, Georgia. I'll turn this over to my colleague, Reagan Shanley.
I think you're talking about Albany. I'll translate for you.
I'm from Colorado.
Which button is this one? Okay. Hello, I'm Reagan Shanley. Now that we got that city clarified, what we're talking about, I'm gonna just hit some high points on some of the assets that we have. Alan said we have 28-year history here in Georgia, obviously primarily shoreline railroads. We have 4 shorelines. We have 3 right now. We're gonna create a 4th, and we'd like to get to a 5th or a 6th eventually. Georgia-Florida Railroad, the Fulton County Railway, Georgia Woodlands Railroad, and then a little bit about the size. We've invested over $16 million in those railroads over the last 5 years, nearly 100 employees. The last bullet there, Savannah Gateway Industrial Hub, we'll show you a little bit more about that. That's a planned industrial development down 12 miles north of Savannah, the port of Savannah, and it will be dual rail served connecting to CSX and NS. A few highlights on each railroad. Georgia and Florida is our longest railroad in Georgia, 222 miles from Albany to Northwest Florida, 21,000 rail carloads per year and growing. We bought that in 2005. We've invested $14 million. It has 43 employees. Whoops. And a number of name brand customers you all know in South Georgia. Fulton County Railway is one here in town. Fulton County Industrial District, you probably all know where that is. 25 miles, it's a little bit shorter, but has significant volume as well. It's 11,000 carloads per year. It's a significant industrial warehouse market, as you guys know. It's 50 million square feet approximately of warehouse space. It's an older park that's been around a long time, well established. We've operated since 2004, but interestingly, we didn't put the bullet in here. We actually bought that line this past summer from CSX, about a $20 million investment just to purchase that. So that's an owned asset now that we'll have in perpetuity. A lot of good customers there, Americold, Saddle Creek, and others. That's one we really want to grow, obviously right here in the metro area. Georgia Woodlands is a little bit smaller railroad. It's out east of town, up northeast, I guess, near Washington, 16 miles of track, 500 carloads a year. Bought it in 1991, invested over $1 million and about 10 employees there. So industrial development, what makes us a little bit different, I think very different from our railroad competitors. We're a short line railroad, so we're governed just like all the class 1s. We're regulated by the Surface Transportation Board in Washington. However, we're the short line carriers, right? So we connect to and we assemble the cars and disassemble the cars for the class 1s essentially, for their customers and for our customers. What we like to do is have industrial parks where those customers have their facilities so that we can serve our customers more directly. We can build facilities for them, we can sell them land, we can develop the land for them and help them grow, basically, because if we can help them grow, they can help us grow, and it's good for everybody. So these are some of the functions that we try to do. We combine real estate and railroad. That's the uniqueness. Our founder, Pat Bro, had his early successes in real estate development, so we want to combine the synergies of real estate development and railroad operations and development. So we are active in site selection, incentive negotiations, land purchase, land development, all of the normal real estate development activities. We work with all the state and local EDCs and governments. That's one reason we're here today, to extend that effort. We have developments, real estate developments that are rail served or will be rail served. Northern Colorado is active. Brownsville, Texas, we operate the railroad for the Port of Brownsville. Stockton, California, Sand Springs, Oklahoma, Sand Springs just outside of Tulsa. So you can see some of the numbers over there, almost 5,000 acres. We've created a lot of jobs, like for example in Colorado, Northern Colorado, Vestas builds wind blades, Owens, Illinois builds beer bottles, makes beer bottles, so a lot of great customers. This is one we're particularly excited about. This is down outside of Savannah. A lot of guys may know about this one. This is Savannah Gateway Industrial Hub. This is a public-private partnership with Effingham County Industrial Development Authority. Brant Herndon is the CEO of that. We're excited to work with him. He's been on board for about 6 or 8 months. We have been doing a lot of planning and some pre-development work. We've spent up to almost $6 million on widening a road, clearing, grubbing, grading, grassing some of the areas to make the property more attractive and readily available to users. This is in Effingham County, which I said. Hodgeville Road is on the east. McCall Road's on the east. McCall Road's on the east. Hodgeville's on the west, and CSX and NS goes right through the middle of it. So we're designing the rail connections now. That will probably take a good part of this year. We'll probably start construction on the rail spur and the rail yard early next year, and we'll be welcoming rail customers in 2020 to that site. It's a large project, $25 million infrastructure in the next few years. It's a long-term project, 75 years. It is a grad certified site, which we think is important. We went through the effort and got a lot of support in sort of doing the due diligence, entitlement to the zoning, the environmental work to get that site ready. 2,700 acres. So we're excited about that. That'll be 2019 will be a great year for us down there. So just in closing, to give you some high points of what we want to do going forward, we're excited about the Freight and Transportation Committee, the joint committee that's upcoming, and we want to help support that effort. We want to collaborate and help, everybody work together to have transportation and logistics more efficient, get more of the truck volume off the road is one of the plans, frankly. And rail is a great way to do that. We want to grow with the Port of Savannah. Port Savannah obviously is a huge economic driver that we want to be a part of, and if our part can be an extension of the Port of Savannah and its rail capacity industrial development, we want to make that happen. Like I said, we've invested some money there. There's a lot more to come. And the public-private partnership, we love those. We're excited about those. I think Savannah is one of the best that we have going right now. Oklahoma's been profitable and successful. Brownsville's been great, and so we want to continue that. So we appreciate you listening to us for a few minutes today. I know you have a very busy day today and weeks ahead. So thanks for having us and inviting us, and appreciate the time. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? All right.
Are you still looking for investors, or are you full right now? Sounds like you got a great business model.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. We have investors from time to time on. So our projects are very varied, because if you think about Savannah or some of the other projects, we're not so uniform that we just build buildings and hold them. For example, we might build them and sell them, or we might just sell land to the users, and it kind of depends. If it's a specialized use like a manufacturing facility or something like that, we generally sell the land because that user wants to control their property, build their facility, and it's a special purpose facility. If it's a generic warehouse, then we could sell land to a developer, for example, or we could develop it for a user, a build-a-suit, and own it ourselves. So there's a lot of different permutations. So I think that the challenge is the early investments are all in infrastructure. And those take a little while to return, right? Return capital. So, yes, we're always open to new investors, and we have all different types of projects. I think that one of the biggest ways that we're looking for an investor at this project is to get the Effingham Parkway Road, which is a GDOT committed project, but it's a local Effingham County project. That road was intended to have been built, several years ago, and so that's getting delayed. So that's a very important part of the success of this park is to get the road, Effingham Parkway, built. So that's kind of it's going to be one of the initial investments, if you will, into that park. Appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Representative Gilliard.
First of all, I want to thank you for the progress of economic development and bringing some jobs near our city. It surely looks like you're near District 162 in Garden City or close to it. So we just want to thank you for the opportunity for growth and economic development. Looks like it's going to be a great project.
Well, thank you very much. We're excited about it. We love it. Love working together. So if we can work together to attract some more manufacturing, that would be fantastic, because obviously they have a higher head count and better wages.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
You're going to be located a couple of miles away from Port Wentworth, so would it be on the corridor on the back end of Garden City or going toward Effingham?
Well, this is. Are you talking about this project?
Mm-hmm.
So this is 12 miles north of the port, north of 95. So it's due west of Rincon, basically. So that's where it is. So it's a little west of Port Wentworth, I guess, or maybe southwest. But close.
All right, thank you. All right. Chairman Watson.
Well, we can do that too. Let's look for another one.
Chairman Watson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, I represent part of the Georgia-Florida Railroad there from Albany, Adel, Moultrie. You've got a $14 million invested in the last 5 years. Could you just speak to that and what that was and where that was? And
Honestly, I can't tell you. I'm not the person that runs that railroad. I don't know if Alan, if you have any background on that. That's a lot of it is maintenance, track extension, and probably prepping land. I don't have the specifics of what those investments are. This came from our finance team and our accounting team. So apologize for that, but I don't have all. I can't detail all that investment. We can get it. We can actually, if you'd like to have it, we can get that. Yeah, from the finance team.
If you could send that to Chelsea, we'd be glad to send it out to our members.
Great.
All right, Representative Holly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for this presentation. I wanted to know, do you have a Georgia-based training facility?
We don't have one that we own and operate. We generally work with local technical schools and other colleges and programs for both railroad employees. I mean, there's certain limited locations where they can be trained. But really, what we try to do is work with our new customers so that they can find the training for their employees. You know, our employees are fairly specialized, if you will, and they sort of come through the railroad industry, and a lot of them move around. But where the real employment and training needs to be and happens is really with our new customers and tenants, right? The people that are in the warehouses, distribution facilities, manufacturing facilities. And so we try to work with all the local communities just so we are aware of those and direct the companies to all the appropriate resources that are available. And that is crucial. I mean, labor is always a big factor today, much bigger than it used to be.
All right. I believe that's all the questions, so thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, appreciate
Thank
it.
you. If you'll get us that information, we'll get it out to the committee.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next up, we're going to have Senate Bill 200 by Majority Whip Gooch. And just, again, at some point, I've got to go to another meeting, so when that happens, we'll ask Vice Chairman Carson to take over. Also, I want to mention, just for the representatives on the committee, Senate Bill 103 is continuing to be worked on. I know there's some other tweaks that are being made to that by Leg Council, so it would be our intention to take that back up at our next committee meeting. So that's where we are there, just for your information. All right, Majority Whip Gooch, Senate Bill 200.
Thank you, Chairman, committee members. This is a pretty straightforward bill. There's really only one change. What you see on the first line is just a reprint of line 31 and 32. It was moved to a different paragraph. But the change in the bill that we're asking you to consider is line 35 and 36, which simply adds a procedure to an appeal process at GDOT for low bid bidding. There's already a process for appeals in the P3 design build section of code, but there's not one in this code section dealing with low bid. And so what this would do is instruct the DOT and the board to adopt a policy and procedures and regulations for those bid appeals. That's simply straightforward, and all it does.
All right, do we have any questions of Senator Gooch? All right, no questions, Senator Gooch. I think there's some folks that signed up to speak, so will you be able to hang around for a few minutes in case we have some follow-up? All right, let me get the sign-up list. Yeah. All right, if you've not signed up to speak but wish to be heard on this bill, please let Chelsea know. All right, first up, D.A. King, who's a citizen here in Georgia. Just go up to the podium. Just give us your name, and again, just go ahead and when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is D.A. King. I am a reluctant expert on illegal immigration. I have been coming to the Georgia Capitol at my own expense.
Just pause one second, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, let's just try to keep it to about 10 minutes or so, if possible. What I don't want to do is lose too many members that we end up not having a quorum. So maybe 15 minutes or so, if you can. I think it'll
Yes,
be fine.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And I've
Thank you.
created a study guide so that I won't go long. I promise. What I started to say was that I've been coming to this campus since the year 2004 at my own expense in an effort to educate legislators on illegal immigration. In the state of Georgia, most people don't know, We have more illegal aliens than does the state of Arizona, and according to the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, we have more people living here as illegal aliens than we do green card holders. Many times when people talk about immigration and somebody being here illegally, they are accused of being anti-immigrant. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of why I'm here on this particular transportation bill, let me please say for the record that I am not against immigration. My adopted sister happens to be an immigrant, as are many of the supporters of the Dustin Inman Society, a nonprofit of which I am the president. What we've been trying to do here with the legislators that have asked me for help over the years is to make Georgia less attractive than other states for illegal immigration, which is mostly caused by illegal employment. The idea is to protect jobs, benefits, and services for people who are eligible, American citizens and lawful immigrants. In 2006, I helped State Senator Chip Rogers create a bill, Senate Bill 529, the Georgia Security and Immigration Compliance Act, in which there was a section that required all official agencies, public employers, to use the E-Verify system, and for their contractors to use E-Verify. In that bill, we put language that would require them to demonstrate that they were using that free federal program, and the language came out that before they were awarded the contract as a contractor. We realized that contractors were making bids based on their assumption of low-wage, artificially cheap black market labor. So in 2009, I helped then State Representative Tom Rice create House Bill 2, into which we put language that changed the original language to making it clear that contractors on public bids would have to submit an affidavit attesting to use of the free, no-cost federal E-Verify program before their bid was considered. And I say it slowly like that because that is the crux of the issue and why I am here. Last year, legislation was passed by the General Assembly, Senate Bill 445, passed on day 40, that reversed the language that I just described from 2006, that required the contractors to submit an affidavit before their bid was considered, back to the less secure language of 2006, that required them to submit an affidavit attesting to use of the E-Verify program under penalty of false swearing before the contract was awarded. If I could, and I promise, Mr. Chairman, I won't go beyond my 15 minutes. If people have never, if members of the board have never seen one of these affidavits, it's item number 1 on the handout that I hope everybody has. I spent a lot of time and money on it. But this is an affidavit created that is to be turned in for all agencies except GDOT before a bid is considered. Senate Bill 445 last year had Section 3, which reversed the language for GDOT and GDOT only. You can see the language I'm talking about. I don't have a copy of the, they don't have a committee sub, so lines 33 and 34, which are not part of this legislation, but because it's part of the code, are included on the LC that you have for Senate Bill 200. You can see the language there mentions the affidavit, and I'm going from memory, but it clearly says that it shall be considered before the bid is awarded. I am here today to try to convince the committee to strike those 2 lines while the code is open and we have an opportunity to simply strike the lines, if I have the same LC, 2190S SCS, to strike lines 33 and 34 so that the Georgia Department of Transportation is required to accept bids from contractors in exactly the same fashion, manner, and requirement under law as is all other public employers in the state of Georgia. There's been a lot of back and forth between myself, and I probably am the biggest geek on this particular law in the state, but we've had conversations with GDOT, and the claim there is that it's really too much trouble for the contractors, and also that they have interpreted the law to say that the documents required in the package, including the affidavit, cannot all be transferred electronically. In 2011, I helped State Representative Matt Ramsey create House Bill 87, into which we put language that clearly says that all documents pertaining to the bids may be transferred electronically. There isn't a doubt on that, but if there is, I can take questions later and show anybody who wants to see that the Georgia law does permit that. Again, I don't want to go long, but I also don't want to be short, and I need to know, if I may, very respectfully, if anybody has any questions so far on anything that I have said or my purpose for being here.
We do have one question that's already buzzed in. Representative Williams.
No, sir.
Okay. Are you indicating, are you saying, are you accusing GDOT of letting contractors hire illegal labor in Georgia?
I'm not here today to make that accusation, no, Representative Williams. I come at my own expense. I was a registered lobbyist for several years. I don't do that anymore. But if I could get you, Representative Williams, since you brought it up, to go to tab 7, which is a column I wrote for the statewide news outlet Insider Advantage Georgia. I cited 5 or 6 different occasions in 2010, and I hope you'll look at it, that CBS Atlanta, Channel 46, documented different news stories where GDOT had in fact hired illegal labor. They had in fact ignored the law that I'm trying to return to, and they had in fact taken the affidavit after they had awarded the contract and long after the bid was submitted. Does that answer your question, please, sir?
Just one follow-up.
Go ahead.
You got me a little behind. I got interested in what you were saying. But I'm just wondering, so you want some legislation, and I'm just wondering if it is a problem. It just hadn't been brought to my attention, and if it is, you said you're not here to make accusations. You're here at your expense. I understand. I've come in most of our expense for about 17 years. But I am very interested in what you're asking this committee to do specifically. What is it that you know this?
Thank you very much, sir. That answered my question on questions. If this committee understands what I'm saying, and if the committee agrees that the Georgia Department of Transportation should be mandated to accept bids from potential contractors in exactly the same manner that literally all other official agencies are, then this committee, I hope, would do a committee amendment and strike lines 33 and 34. That would return the code to where it was before Senate Bill 445 was passed last year. The legislation that was passed to govern this is a code section called 131091, and believe me, I wish I did not know this, but 131091 is still on the books. It's just that there was a law passed last year that gave a carve-out, if you will, or an exception for GDOT on when they will accept or check out whether or not the affidavit has been submitted on use of E-Verify. My answer is striking lines 33 and 34, State Representative. Did that help?
All right. Anything further before we move?
If there's no more questions, I'd be surprised if there's no more questions, but no, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. I would ask for an opportunity, if something comes up before any decisions are made, to maybe offer some things I know that the committee does not.
Let me make sure, just so I can sum it up for myself and for the committee. And I want, this is at least we can hear from GDOT. What I'm saying may not be correct, but I think this is what you're saying. Currently, if I am a contractor and I'm going to submit a bid, then before I'm awarded the contract, I have to give an affidavit swearing that I've done the E-Verify. But you're saying up until last year, I would have had to submit that at the time I submitted the bid. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct, yes, Mr. Chairman. And again, the law requires all other agencies to do the latter part of what you said.
All right. There is a question. 23. Go ahead, Representative.
All right, so you're saying you want it, it's just a timing issue because they're E-verifying. You don't like when they're E-verifying. Is that correct? Would that be correct?
I couldn't speak to whether or not they're actually using the E-Verify system, State Representative, if I may. The affidavit that states are allowed to create only is an attestation to that they are using E-Verify and offer their unique user number. The angle here is, and what I cited in my column that I handed you, is that it is very possible, and it happens probably every week, that a contractor makes a bid based on what he thinks he can hire cheaper, artificially cheap black market labor for, and then wins the contract, and then goes and gets E-Verify. The nature of E-Verify is that once you become a user, you can only use it moving forward for employees that you have hired within 3 days. You may not, so to speak, E-Verify someone that you have already hired.
So if they won the bid with the idea that they were going to have cheap labor, then it would actually save the state money, and eventually they would come back and have to E-Verify and not hire that labor. So I don't.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, if they're gonna place a bid with the idea that they're gonna hire cheap. If they're gonna place a bid with the idea that they're gonna hire cheap labor and have a lower bid price, win the bid, the state saves money, and then they have to come back and E-Verify all those employees, so they're not hiring the illegal people. So it's
No, I mean, I need to clarify my answer, because E-Verify, State Representative, can only be used moving forward from the day you become authorized. If I hire you today, I cannot E-Verify you, as you say, next week. If I become E-Verify eligible next week, you're already hired, you are safe. And I do agree with everybody who might come up with the premise that the state can save a lot of money by hiring contractors who hire illegal labor. Where I live in Cobb County, we caught them once, twice, 3 times with illegal labor building our courthouse about 100 yards away from the county commission headquarters. So I agree the state can save money using black market labor. I don't agree with you on your E-Verify concept.
Let me ask a question. Most of the contractors who bid jobs bid multiple jobs. They bid all the time. So if a contractor was going to do that, they're going to try to, me and Bill Hitchens are partnering, we're going to get this job, and we're going to hire people who are not legal to work because we don't have to E-Verify. And even if the affidavit they're turning in at the time of the bid, the contract's awarded, then next month they're bidding additional work from GDOT. So those employees who are on their payroll now for this other job are going to get caught up in that E-Verify at that point. So it seems like the only way that someone could get around the system is if they only bid just one job and didn't bid again unless they fired those employees. You see what I'm asking?
I do, Mr. Chairman. May I respond?
Yes.
So all of this was discussed at length with nationwide publicity in 2006, 2009, and 2011. And we tried to imagine all the scenarios, and you've just come up with one of them. What the General Assembly agreed on in the different laws that I've cited is that if we have one system as secure as possible, we don't have to play the game, if you will, of wondering whether or not maybe this job they had legal labor or that job they didn't. And I can respectfully offer that I have had great success in explaining this to relatively normal Georgians who don't study this. And the concept that there's one agency who can use E-Verify or accept a different system for contractor bidding than other agencies rubs people really, really, really the wrong way. And I hope the committee without me being here anymore, I hope you will see the wisdom in simply, while the code is in front of you, striking lines 33 and 34 and returning the GDOT bidding system to where it was last year. And again, the same system that's under OCGA 131091.
You got two more questions. We'll take those. After that, we'll cut it off, and then we'll ask GDOT to respond, and then we'll move forward. So I believe we have Representative Scroggins.
Yes, sir. Could you expand on what other agencies you're talking about do not have to abide by this same law?
That would take a long time, Representative,
Just
but
a-
I can tell you that the definition is public employer. So the city of Marietta, the county of Cobb, GDOT, the Department of Labor, anyone who is of any agency that hires with taxpayer dollars is bound to use E-Verify and to collect the E-Verify information from their contractors, and their contractors are required to collect the E-Verify information from their subcontractors. So I could say literally everybody.
Everybody but GDOT, is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Next is Representative Holly. Last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have for you, and I know you mentioned this situation, I guess, in Cobb, where they built a courthouse where this was used. Where in the sphere of transportation have you seen this? Where they actually have not, where you've had hired hands who are illegal, and where it hasn't been.
Again, if I may, if you would hit tab 7, State Representative, please, sir. It is a column I wrote for Insider Advantage, in which on the second page I cite, I think, 6 different reports from CBS Atlanta, Channel 46, that did investigative reports on GDOT hiring black market labor, and, contractors who use black market labor in the year 2010. I'm happy to read the headlines, but I think you have it in front of you. One of them is that GDOT contractor is hiring illegal workers.
Any follow-up, Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see for, I guess, it's a 2010. So this is one instance. This is the only instance that you know on record.
Often when I come to the Capitol, I hear objections to legislation, State Representatives, because the opposition will say, well, that's never happened yet. We'll wait until it does happen before we pass a law. But this is 6 different stories, I think, on 2 different occasions. But if that's your question, I think it's 2 separate occasions. But yeah, that's all I can cite right now. I didn't archive and save the newspaper articles.
No, I'm not. That was nice. I wasn't actually suggesting anything on that. But because this is a single incident, and we're looking at GDOT as an enforcement measure, I was hoping that quite possibly with inclusion of this article, that you might have taken it upon yourself to see exactly what GDOT is going to do or has been doing with addressing not only this, but the ones to come, the situations like this to come, because oftentimes, we find it may be better to let the agency do the job as tasked before we try to enforce them to do something more.
I've been coming down here a long time, and I respectfully disagree. Having somebody umpire their own ball game, I think is a bad idea. No disrespect.
All right. Thank you, Mr. King. We're going to ask, no other questions, Josh Waller from GDOT to come up to the podium. And
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Waller, if you would come up. I think the committee knows Josh. He works for the Department of Transportation for the commissioner. Mr. Waller, I think it would be helpful to the committee if you would explain what exactly this does and how the process works, if you would, and then answer any questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'll just I'll situate the committee into the process. So our board meets once a month on the 3rd Thursday of the month, and one of their defined responsibilities is approving those lettings that are for advertisement. So they'll meet on a Thursday. They'll be presented with a list of projects. They'll approve those projects. Those are then advertised for about a 1-month period. It actually goes then to the next board meeting, the Friday after the board meeting, which is on a Thursday. That's when those bids are due. And so then the bids are opened on that Friday. Under this title, those are all low bid. So whatever the lowest bid, the lowest qualified bid is awarded. That's the way the statute's set up. So this goes to when you get the qualification documents. So before SB 445, which was adopted last year, that E-Verify affidavit was required Thursday noon, the day before the bids were open. The practical effect of SB 445, the change to the spec is instead of that Thursday, it's now due the following Monday at noon.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? All right, doesn't appear so. So it's accurate to say there was a change, but it's what you're telling us is that that change does not prohibit GDOT from, and does still require that GDOT get e-verification documents from a contractor prior to entering into a contract with them.
Yeah, prior to award, which actually award occurs a few weeks after even the due date that we're discussing that Monday. And then you're talking about from award 2 to 3 weeks before you even sign a contract. And then you're looking at best case scenario 30 days before they actually, well, they've got notice to proceed and are incurring actual costs. So you're talking about a difference of Thursday noon to then the following Monday at noon. And what that accounted for, and there could be some discussion or disagreement, but the interpretation from the legal team was that on the affidavit, having the inked signature was a critical component. So what you were running into is contractors who had especially the small contractors who maybe aren't as accustomed to bidding GDOT projects, they would get their electronic package submitted for the Friday letting, but the E-Verify document would come sometime over the weekend or the following Monday. So this allowed for a window to ensure that the hard copy was arrived. Again, it was Thursday. After SB 445, it's Monday.
And do you have any companies that typically would just bid one job and that's all, they would never turn another bid in?
I'm sure that has maybe happened. I'm not probably not I don't know that off the top of my head, but you do have some that they'll be, depending on what we're advertising, it may be something that's in their scope of work, it's geographically in their area, and unless another project comes that fits that, it may be a long time before they bid again.
Okay. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want clarification, make sure I'm hearing you right, Josh. I was trying to take some notes. If when the board meets and award is made, usually you did the E-Verify, they had to have documentation by 12 o'clock on Thursday.
Correct.
Under 445, it's needed by
The following Monday at noon.
If they don't have it by Monday, they won't be awarded the contract anyhow.
Well, they're disqualified from any further consideration.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what's the problem. If you've got 2 or 3 weeks down the road anyhow, so if you don't have the paperwork in place, you're not gonna get the job. Am I not understanding that right?
I think from our standpoint, so just as a reference, the board approves it the prior month. They have a month to submit bids. The bids are open noon on Friday, or they're actually tabulated in the system, and we see the lowest bid. That triggered what the law would consider consideration. And so if they didn't have the E-Verify document when we got to that point, they were automatically disqualified, even though there's further consideration in that process. So yes, the practical effect of 445 was what was a Thursday deadline is now the subsequent Monday.
No Ticky Monday, no Laundry Tuesday.
Correct. Well,
Okay. Just wondering.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Waller.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. With that, we're in the posture of consideration of Senate Bill 200. I'll open the floor. Hold on. We have a, you got a question? No. Number 24.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
All right, we have a motion due pass. Do we have a second? Second. All right, we have a motion due pass. Do we have any discussion, any amendments? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right, ayes have it. Motion carries. Senator, you're on the rules. And again, Senate Bill 103 will be heard on Tuesday, so we stand adjourned. Thank you.